Since 1961, thousands of faculty have shared their knowledge and expertise with our amazing students. And while not one of these individuals have walked the same path, we all have found one thing in common: purpose. We find meaning in our instruction that transcends beyond the classroom. For most of us, this is not a profession, it's a calling. This podcast captures the stories of some incredible faculty who continue to show up in today's evolving educational landscape. Welcome to Purpose, a Faculty Excellence Institute podcast. Good afternoon. I'm here with Professor Ryan Navejar, Professor of Economics from San Jacinto College, Generation Park, and we're here to talk about purpose. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Tyler. I grew up in South Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas. Been there. My family's been there for many, many years. I was the youngest of three children. I have an older brother and an older sister, so I had that experience, passed down to me a little bit. My parents were older for my generation, so I kind of grew up in an old-fashioned home, kind of out of sequence. I'm technically a millennial, but kind of on the cusp of Gen X millennial, so a little bit more old-fashioned in my upbringing. My mother was an elementary school teacher for 30 years. My father sold office supplies and office furniture. He did work at Kroger's as a store manager early in our lives, but he switched careers because he wanted to spend more time with the family. It just didn't work having those 80-hour weeks, and he wanted to have a schedule 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, that aligned more with the family dynamic, and I really appreciate having both my parents there, for all the different experiences that I had. Unfortunately, I was really sick as a child a lot. I had a lot of respiratory problems, pneumonia, things like that. I was in the hospital 12 times, one year when I was 5 or 6. Missed a lot of kindergarten, missed a lot of birthday parties and things like that. So it turns out that I had to move schools to the school where my mom was teaching at. That's not where we were district to, but I had to go there just to help with those medical issues that she had to take me to the hospital or take me to the doctor's office, whatever that is. So that was a kind of an interesting dynamic of going to school where my mom taught, right? And it really got me to get more experience with the education field, right? I got to know the other teachers really well. I stayed late at school a lot. I was a latchkey kid. My brother was a latchkey kid. So I really got comfortable being in the education setting. So I think that really did set me down the path, even though I really wasn't thinking about teaching at the time. I really loved music as a child. That was really my passion. That's really how I experienced culture. I sang in the church choir. Nice. I sang in middle school and even into freshman year of high school. But I couldn't really go much further than that. I was in the boys' choir, obviously, and the other boys weren't passing their classes, so we weren't able to compete very much. So I ended up switching to academic decathlon, and that's really where I got, really my passion and my love for learning really amped up. As a child, I was kind of in that gifted section, and the normal classes really weren't doing it for me. But having academic decathlon and having that experience with my fellow students to really dig deeper and learn more about different topics, and really probably most importantly is how the topics flow together, and how it didn't have to be math classes over here and science classes over here and English classes over here, but that the different fields could intersect with each other and overlap. That really helped me find the fun in learning. And also in that experience, I got a lot of time to teach and coach my teammates. And that kind of sparked the fire a little bit of wanting to teach. And I spent a lot of time at school. We would, after school and on weekends, we would be in the library studying and teaching each other. And so, again, that's kind of where I got that feeling of comfortability being in the school setting.
So you really think that spending that time at school, helping your fellow classmates and stuff like that was setting the stage for your future? Yeah,
I mean, like I said, I didn't know it at the time. A lot of my family are in education, mostly K through 12, and I knew that wasn't for me. I really didn't think about being a college professor at the time because I didn't know anybody in that field, and so it really wasn't an option for me or even a thought to me. But I can see now that I was gaining that feeling and that appreciation for teaching and learning and passing it on.
Nice, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Before we go on, I am interested in the choir part. So what did you sing? Like what part? Who? I guess not part, but Were you a bass? Were you what?
Well, I mean, it was around that time where my voice was changing. So I went from being, an alto in a kind of children's choir to being a tenor two and then a bass one.
Okay.
But one thing that's kind of interesting about that is I get that experience where when you hear music, you get kind of goosebumps. And I kind of just started learning more about that and how not everybody experiences that.
That's true.
But that's still an important thing to me. I love, going to concerts, going to musical theater. I really like how you can get that feeling from music.
Yeah, I think being involved in music that way, when you start to experience music outside of that, you experience it different. Being in the band, I kind of get that same thing. When I hear certain things, I get goosebumps, or I can hear the part that I would have been playing.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. I didn't know that about you. Yeah. That's really cool.
Cool, thanks.
So how'd you end up studying economics?
Well, yeah, like I've been kind of suggesting, economics or academic economics really wasn't on my radar growing up. Like I said, I was kind of the gifted child and expected to be top of the class and all that. And when you're in that situation, everyone expects you to be a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm,
That's what the smart kids do, right? And I was really interested in medicine too. ER is my favorite TV show. I still love it, and I love that, and I had a lot of experience with the medical field as a sick child. So I did have a lot of experience with that, and it was important to me. And so it wasn't like I was being pushed toward it or anything. It's something that I really wanted to do. When I went into college, I was totally expecting to go into the medical field, if not into practicing medicine, then maybe pathology, curing diseases and discovering proteins and all that kind of stuff. That's really, what I thought I was going to do. But then when I got into the higher science classes and getting into the labs and stuff, it wasn't for me. It wasn't connecting the way I thought I was going to. And so I took a step back and I started thinking about my journey up to that point and what was my passion in learning. I knew I loved learning, and I knew, something that, that I could find something that really spoke to me better than this path that other people had set for me. And at first what I did was I switched my major to English and history because I really liked the idea of understanding how we got here, right? The idea that the way things are now is not the way they've always been. And there's got to be a story about how we got to this point and that can help us understand where we're going next. And so I thought combining those two fields would help me understand that narrative better. And I really did like that. But as I started thinking more about my time in academic decathlon, really, the field and the discipline that really spoke to me the most was economics. And that was because I think it tells us a lot about how things are going and how we can explain the world around us and our place in it and how we can improve our situation. And that's what really appealed to me about economics, and that it combined all these different elements, right? There's history to it, there's political science in it, but there's also biology and psychology to it,
really?
Which I still had that passion for science and understanding humanity both on the micro scale and the macro scale. And so economics really combined all these different fields that I was really interested in. And I thought if I could, find my place in this field, I could scratch all those itches, right? And I started taking those classes, and it really did connect at first. And at the time, I guess I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. If I was going to, go into business or work for the government or whatever. But what really took it over the edge and what really set me on my path to where we are today is I got selected for a summer program with the American Economics Association. And they picked students from all over the country, and we were sent to Duke University for a summer. Yeah, and being a sports fan, I'd always dreamed about going to Duke, I parked my car right next to Cameron Indoor Stadium, and took classes with real Duke professors. It was, it was a real thing. And it was, and all that was fun. And then the classes started, and it was a shock to me. It was the first time I ever struggled in school. Every other time it was just ace and everything, and it was a struggle.
Tell us about the struggle.
Yeah. I mean, obviously being away from home for the first time, I had a very close-knit family. I was the first to leave home. My older brother and older sister had still never left home by the time that I went to college at University of Houston. So that was already, a separation to me. Then I went all the way to North Carolina, didn't know anybody. it was very difficult transition at first. And so I felt really isolated and alone. And then taking these classes, and I guess maybe part of it was just mentally, like I'm at this big university, but it was difficult to really take those steps to get to the academic level of economics. I could take the basics, but now we're talking about on the way to graduate school, because that's what that program was for. It was to prepare minority students to be ready for graduate school. Because honestly, even at my home university, they were just kind of getting us ready to graduate with a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. There was like, why are you taking these calculus classes? Because I'd already taken the calculus classes because I was science oriented. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like, why are you taking these calculus classes? I'm like, I need them for graduate school. But they weren't even preparing me for that. But then I go to Duke University and they're really preparing us for that. And it's a whole nother level. And, reading these books and reading these authors and engaging with academic economics journals for the first time, it was a big shock to me. And I was upset and I was scared. And I didn't know where I fit in if I wasn't the best anymore, right? But what really helped me was the academic advisor at the program, Dr. Charles Becker. We would have one-on-ones, and he would, really tell me, like, you don't have to be the best right now, right? This is where you learn. This is where you develop, mm-hmm. right? And he was a big fan of the Durham Bulls, the minor league team.
Okay.
He's like, we got B.J. Upton here, and he's a top prospect and everything, but he's not ready yet. He's not the best yet. He has to start somewhere, and you have to start somewhere.
Nice.
And so that kind of reoriented my idea about what education was, right? It wasn't this place where you show off and win these ribbons or whatever. It's where you develop. Mm-hmm. And so that really... that's what really consciously started me on the path of, I want to do that for people. I want to help them develop the skills that they didn't even know they had.
So do you think that's where you found your purpose?
Yeah, I think in terms of my purpose being an educator, in terms of really being focused on helping students, young people develop their skills, I think that's where it really coalesced. And this is what I'm meant to do, and this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it now.
So even out of your initial struggle while you're in this program, you were able to find your purpose and the meaning for what you thought the rest of your life would be about.
Yeah, and ironically, I think if I didn't struggle, I wouldn't have found it.
Yeah. Sometimes it works like that.
Yeah.
Right?
So the purpose was found in the struggle. Yeah.
Well, I have to say I envy you, because Duke University was where I wanted to go to school to, and then I saw the price tag, and my dad was like,
I actually got accepted to go to graduate school there.
Oh, nice.
But I decided to stay in Texas for family reasons. And it's funny, like if I hadn't gone to the summer program, I probably would have gone. And then what would have happened? My whole life would have been different. But I'm happy with where I'm at.
It's interesting how those small things can do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So how'd you get to San Jac? What led you here?
Yeah, it's, in terms of San Jac specifically, when I was in graduate school, University of Texas at Austin, I was in a PhD program, and that's kind of, that's obviously what my goal was, signing up for that program to get that PhD. And I still didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I knew I wanted to be in education in some way. I didn't know I was going to be a professor per se. Still thinking about, the Federal Reserve or mm-hmm. something like that, but in an educational role. But then as I got more experience with it and with the academic industry mm-hmm. as a business, because I didn't really have much experience with community college. Mm-hmm. I never really thought about it. And although there is a pretty big community college in my hometown, and I did see it time to time at different events, I didn't really know a lot of people that went there, and I certainly didn't know any professors. And so I didn't really know what that would mean if I just started teaching there. But then I started learning more about it, learning about the role of the community college professor versus the academic professor. Mm-hmm. And I really thought, do I want to just do research the rest of my life? And I said, no, what I want to do is teach. And so 2 years into my program, I got my master's, and I said, I'm out. And I got to get started. And so I started teaching at Coastal Bend College in Beeville in South Texas for a year. That was an interesting experience because I was the only economics professor for the entire district.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's 4 campuses, all at least an hour apart. Some
And you were responsible for
yeah,
all 4.
and it's funny because obviously couldn't physically be there. So my first class ever, never took an education class in my life. All economics. First class in my life, 8:00 in the morning. I'm in my home campus in Kingsville, Texas, and I have my class in front of me. A lot of dual credit students as well. And there's a camera in the room, and it's on me. And on my screen are 3 other camera shots of full classes in 3 different cities.
Wow.
All looking at me.
What year is this?
This is 17 years ago, so 2008.
So this is way before any of the stuff that we're doing now.
Yeah. So that was what we call distance learning.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, online classes where they're online anytime. I'm teaching simultaneously, right, to 4 different classes in 4 different cities on camera. And so that was, trial by fire, basically.
What did you think you learned about yourself as a professor, as a teacher, with that first experience? Did you pick up anything from it? Did it make you a better teacher? Did you just feel lost? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, it was terrifying at first. I had my little notebook, my little binder, and I wrote down everything I was going to say for the entire lecture. You saw I prepared my notes for today. I had every joke that I was going to say, because I was just
So you
scared.
were ready to perform.
Yeah, I was ready to perform, but I was also terrified. You know what I mean? I didn't think I was prepared just to wing it and go off the cuff. You know what I mean? It's because I wanted my students to get what they deserved. That I wanted them to get the full experience. I didn't want my nerves or my unpreparedness to be a barrier to them. Right? So I wanted to prepare as much as I could. And at the time, what that meant was, writing down word for word what I was going to say. Now, of course, any teacher knows that only works until the first question gets asked, right?
Yes.
It's like, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Mike Tyson, right?
Exactly, right? So I learned that you can't do that, right? You can't be as rigid like that. And while it was terrifying in the moment, I learned so much that first year, right? Doing everything, having to prep different kinds of classes, the face-to-face, synchronous style, the asynchronous online, a more traditional face-to-face night classes with different types of students. So I really did learn a lot, and it was a very vital experience to me for when I moved on. Even by the end of that first year, because it was just such a small college, as a small district, I was on the president's leadership team by the end of the first year, and I was learning a lot about how the college gets managed and stuff like that. So it was a great experience, great learning experience, even if it was, a tough pool to get thrown into right away.
Nice. So you go from that first teaching experience where you're the only economics professor for 4 different campuses. And eventually you end up at San Jac. What are those first couple years like at San Jac?
Yeah, it's somewhat similar and somewhat different, right? So I started at the North Campus, and I was the only economics professor at that campus. So I did still have a lot of the flexibility and control that I liked and I enjoyed. But of course, I had colleagues to work with as well, to take their experiences. I would go into their classes and see what they were doing. And I hadn't had that experience before. I never, except going back to my own classes, that I took when I was an undergrad, I never really saw another economics professor teach before. Once I, had my profession as well. So it was good to at least have someone that I could look towards and I could get their experiences as well. And of course, just being a bigger college, San Jac just has a lot more resources and a lot more options in terms of what we can do for our students. So not having those limitations that I had in my smaller college that I began with was very useful. And I think the most important thing was getting more comfortable in my own teaching and my own experience. It allowed me to open up and start working with other professors in different fields and different disciplines. And that was a good growth experience for me as well, because that's what I love. Like I said before, I love how the different disciplines and fields can work together across disciplines.
So you've been teaching, 17 or so years? Has the purpose changed? Has something been added to the purpose? Like, where are you now within in that grand scheme of things?
I definitely think it's grown in scope for sure.
Okay.
At first I'm just trying to survive, trying to make sure, like I was saying before, that my students get the education that they deserve. But as much as we all continue to tweak and work on our classes, I think that part's, on autopilot. I know my stuff.
Yeah.
I can teach anybody anything about economics at any time. But I've then had an opportunity, and San Jacinto was giving me the opportunity to grow that in scope, my purpose, in terms of working in different programs and different committees, helping, making sure that more people get that experience and that opportunity to grow that I want. I mean, just this institute that we're in right now, right? Helping share our experiences with other faculty to give them the knowledge and the experience and the opportunity to pass that on to more students. So I really do appreciate that opportunity that I've been given to, grow the scope of my purpose from not just my classroom, but to the whole college, and in some instances, right beyond that.
Nice. What would you tell, or what advice would you give to a new faculty member at San Jac?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is patience. You can't expect to be perfect, right off the bat. I'm a perfectionist, and that's what I wanted for myself initially. But I think that gets you into more trouble than just, being patient, seeing how things develop, seeing what your students need, right? You can't make those assumptions about what your students need. The students, are not going to be like us all the time. They're not going to come from the same place, not going to have the same experiences. So I guess that'd be lesson number 2, listen. Listen to what your students have to say, listen to their feedback and what they need, so you can provide that the best way possible.
Nice. I want to switch gears a little bit, and now I want to, get to know Ryan a little bit more. We want to get to know that. So I got a couple questions for you, and we want to see who Ryan is. All right. So what's your go-to wake-up drink?
Wake up, got to be coffee.
Okay.
I'm actually a stockholder in Keurig Dr. Pepper, so
nice.
Keep on drinking that Dr. Pepper. I appreciate it. But yeah, I love my Keurig machine, and it keeps me going.
So what are you putting in your coffee?
Putting in just a little bit of artificial sweetener. Don't want too much sugar, and some, maybe 1 pot of non-dairy creamer.
Okay. Nice. Favorite class to teach?
Favorite class to teach? Well, I mean, at economics, we really only have 2 preps, two courses. So I don't want to pick between my 2 babies, but I will say an individual class that I would want to teach.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah, is whatever's topical, and tariffs right now are a big thing in economics. All the students want to know, how's this going to affect me? What's going on? Why are we doing this? So yeah, I think, like I was saying before, about being flexible, right? If something's happening in your field that the students are interested, that's going to be my favorite.
And I want to ask you something about that. I mean, economics is real life stuff.
Yeah.
It's happening as you teach. The world is going on,
Yeah.
right? That stuff is happening. How do you get through a lesson if you have students who may just want to talk about the current thing? So how do you manage that? Because it is very important to all of us.
Yeah.
So what does an economics lesson look like, and how do you prevent it just going into, like you said, tariffs are a big thing now. How do you stop a lesson from just going in that direction and having that conversation?
Yeah, no, it
or
can
do
be,
you stop
it can be tough. It can be very personal at times. I mean, I've been teaching the most dry lesson about the unemployment rate and how it's calculated and stuff like that, and the student just started crying because she just lost her job.
Wow.
And that's really humbling to me. I mean, obviously we all have our own, financial situations, but to me, like, these are just, at most of the time at least, they're just terms, or they're just, facts or whatever, but it's very personal to everybody and even to our students. So you have to be mindful of that, right? And know that people can take it a different way, right? So you have to be mindful of that and give time to that. But you also, obviously, you need to be respectful to the other students' time, right? So there's going to be students that have questions, that are very concerned about different things, and you can point to that and give attention to that. But when it gets to the point of, I mean, I don't want to say disruption, but taking over the class, you can say, let's talk about this. And I'd love to talk more about this, but we need to move on. So the other students can get their lesson as well.
I can see how that happens.
Yeah.
Most impactful person in your life?
Well, I mean, besides my parents, let's discount that for a second because obviously they're number one and two. My pediatrician when I was a child. Yeah. Like I said, I was sick as a child, so I spent a lot of time in that office. And he was a good man. He was thoughtful, considerate. My mother had a million questions, obviously, and he was willing to take that time with her, even though I obviously had other patients, but he was willing to take that time with us and see how we could solve things for a long-term solution instead of just going to the hospital all the time. And honestly, he saved my life. So I can't say anything more than that. But even beyond that, he helped really develop my love of science. He built his own telescope.
Wow.
And I was very in awe of that and all of his learnedness. And also, even to this day, and today's a bad day, but I wear a penguin almost every day to work and out because he loved penguins and kind of passed that on to me. And so penguins are my guys.
I mean, that is a big impact when they're saving your life and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, he was. I can never thank Dr. Cortez enough.
That's pretty cool. Coolest place you've ever visited?
I mean, I'd like to travel some more, but I think the coolest place I've ever visited was the Tower of London, the White Tower, the one in the middle. Just being in there with all that history, being in America and never leaving the continent till I went to London in 2022. Just you don't see places that are that old and have that kind of history to them. It's almost kind of hard to fathom. What somebody was here like doing important things in the 1100s. That's crazy. And just thinking about I've been here in a video game before. And played it before. And now I'm here. So that was a surreal experience as well.
Nice. Favorite book you've ever read?
My favorite book I've ever read is Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Payton. It was kind of like the first real, hard, challenging book I'd ever read up to that point. I guess it was like 10th grade. And I learned a lot from it. And in a lot of ways, I guess I lived a bit of a sheltered life, 2 parents, middle class, and all that kind of stuff. And it really showed me how people in different places live and the kind of things that they had to go through. It's about South Africa, right before apartheid started.
Okay.
And so it talks about how a country is going through this transition culturally, economically, one that the United States kind of went through hundreds of years ago. And so it was just interesting to see how there are people today, a few years ago, that were going through that same experience. And as someone who was already kind of interested in economics at the time and economic development, economic growth, and how can we help, these poor countries, get up to our level or whatever, it taught me that it's more complicated than that. There's challenges that occur when a country changes their whole economic model.
Got it. I'm going to have to check that one out.
Yeah.
I'll check that one out. Something you think would surprise people to know about Ryan? Well,
apparently it's how much I like music. I didn't know that was not well known, but I think the thing that most people probably don't know is that I'm a big fan of pro wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite wrestler?
My favorite wrestler, probably Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold was a good one, man.
Yeah.
That was like classic times of wrestling too.
Oh yeah. But I mean, again, thinking about it from an economic and business standpoint, the business is even bigger now. Yeah, the TV ratings and stuff is not the same, but the business is even bigger now. But I mean, not just, obviously the fun and the pageantry of it, but I really do think it's a quintessential American art form. Like jazz, for example.
Okay.
It's a combination of live theater and athletic performance.
Definitely.
Right. And I mean, I love both of those things. And I also love the storytelling element to it.
And that's a big part of pro wrestling.
And you just think about it as a TV show that it never ends, right? There's no season finale. There's no, it just keeps going, right? They got to come up with new stories all the time. So it's definitely, especially like during the pandemic, right? And people were looking for content and looking for, things to keep them interested, right? It was very interesting to see how they kept that going.
So what's been your favorite moment in pro wrestling?
My favorite, oh man, that's so hard. I mean, I think just let's just say that I've experienced personally, right? Just to keep it
Okay.
easier, right? I was there in May 2019 in Las Vegas when AEW, the kind of secondary wrestling company, had their first event, and that was a really interesting day to be there for, both as a fan of pro wrestling and as someone who's interested in economics and business, because WWE had a monopoly basically for 20 years, and this really turned the page for the industry. And I thought that it was really cool to be there for that.
That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
What's, to kind of go to a more serious note, what's been one of the more pivotal experiences that shaped you?
Well, I mean, this is kind of ironic that I'm sitting here with you, a Louisiana man, talking about this, but Hurricane Katrina.
I remember it. I remember
it. It was tough, man. And I was there. I was in college, and I was with my girlfriend, who's Creole. Her family's from Louisiana as well, and it really reshaped a lot of my worldview. You know, at the time, and up to that point, I was very kind of objectivist, maybe libertarian, you could say, in terms of, people can just find their own way. Like they don't need, government, or they don't need assistance or whatever, and everyone would just kind of do their own thing, and that would be for the best. But I really learned a lot in that time about how we need to depend on each other and rely on each other. There's no reason in a country like ours that people had to suffer like that.
Yeah, and that was an experience. I'm not from New Orleans, but being in Baton Rouge at the time, LSU's campus almost turned into a war zone.
Yeah.
It felt like, with the rescue efforts and stuff like that. So I could see, having someone close to you who was from that space, how you could pick up on those things. And you don't even have to have someone close to you to pick up on that in that situation. That's interesting that would have been the thing that
so if
you.
anybody met me now, like they know so much about my views on economic and social justice, and a lot of that was formed during that event.
That's pretty interesting. Who's your favorite teacher and why?
My favorite teacher, we talked about Dr. Becker already, although he was more my advisor than my teacher, so let's discount that for a second. Miss Irma Rodriguez was my third grade teacher. Again, I was at the school that my mom was teaching, but she was my third grade teacher. I actually had met her previously because when I started going to that school in kindergarten, she was teaching my brother. He was in third grade at the time. And because I was, considered advanced or gifted or whatever, they would take me into that class to do math lessons, take me out of kindergarten, put me in that third grade class. So I already knew her to a degree. But then when I got into her class fully, when I reached third grade, I really learned a lot from her about the purpose of education. Like I was saying before, I kind of had this view that school was just this place where you show off or you win ribbons or whatever. Like you are what you are in terms of intelligence, and school doesn't really change that. That's where you show it. But she taught me a lot about what education is really about. And it's how it's about, passing down knowledge to the next generation. And if you can, for the very, very, very lucky few, to be able to develop new knowledge. And I never really thought about that before. I thought, everything that we'd ever know is in these books. And you just read all the books and you memorize them and you know everything, right? But Ms. Rodriguez really told me that, you could be one of those people that develops new knowledge.
Nice.
And
that's powerful.
Yeah. And, she's still very close to my family to this day.
That's really powerful. Can you maybe name something that you've appreciated the most about your experience at San Jac? I really like how San Jac gives us the opportunity to try different things, to experiment. I've done different things in terms of individual events for different celebrations, bringing together different professors from different disciplines, different students from different majors, just to share and celebrate in that knowledge. I've worked with my colleagues to create different parts of term and different opportunities for students to learn in a different way. That's not just your traditional 16-week model. We get to just try different things and see what works. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And we're able to build off of that. So that's kind of one of the
the main reasons why I wanted to move to Gen Park, for example, is to be part of that growth and that development and to try different things. So I think the opportunity and the ability to be flexible and to experiment is probably the thing I appreciate the most.
Nice. That's pretty cool. I have a couple more questions for you. What is something that you've not done or you have not accomplished yet that you wish to do or you wish to accomplish?
That's a good question. I have written a book, a textbook for economics, so that's something that I did want to accomplish. So I did that.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir. I think something I want to do is, and I don't know exactly how feasible this is at either the college or the state level, but I'd like to create a new course.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that,
tell us about it.
Yeah, I think there's opportunity for a course that combines history and political science and economics in an explicit way that I think has not been tried yet. Sort of like humanities, how humanities kind of takes the fine arts and language and literature and history and looks at it from a more ancient historical standpoint. I think if we could do that for more contemporary period, like I was saying before, just so people can have a better understanding of how we got here, right? Maybe it would be about the New Deal, maybe it would be about the Civil Rights era, but something that helps contextualize the current moment, because I think people do miss out on an understanding of why things are the way they are. And then we start tearing it down, and then we wonder, wait a minute, where'd this go? Well, there's a reason why it was like that, right? So I don't know if it would be, or if it could be, a 16-week course, or it could just be something, external. But I think having a more contemporary, economic history of the United States would be something that, because economic history was really my first love, and it's something that I don't get to do too much of.
Nice. I think you just added a little more to your purpose there, and I hope you could see that to fruition.
I hope so too.
I think that's some really interesting perspective about economics, the social things that are surrounding it and all that. So I hope you can get that done, man.
Thank you.
Let's do that. Kind of wrapping up, what advice would you give to the teenage version of you?
Oh, wow. I'd say, first of all, this too shall pass, right? I think because I have a niece that's a teenager right now, and everything that happens is the end of the world. It's the biggest thing that ever happened. And I guess there's just some biology to that we can't change. But I wish I could tell my former self that you'll get there. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You don't need to worry about not being in the right place, not fitting in, because you'll find your place.
Nice. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate your time this afternoon. I think you definitely gave us more insight about yourself, and you also gave us a look into your own purpose. So I really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Purpose, a Faculty Excellence Institute podcast. Join us next time as we hear from one of our inspiring faculty. Keep doing great work and stay classy, San Jacinto.